There's passion. There's performance. Then there's F-Sport. The F-Sport event is happening now at Lexus, where you'll earn extraordinary offers on an arsenal of performance-inspired features and packages, all designed to elevate your driving experience. Feel the power of F-Sport.
Lease a 2018 Lexus RX 350 F-Sport for as low as 1.9% APR with F-Sport credits of up to $2,000. Visit your local Lexus dealer for details.
Welcome to Building Fortunes Radio. Make sure you check us out at buildingfortunesradio.com. Along with our marketing partners, we're here to help our PM Marketing Network Lead customers build their businesses and make the world a better place. At Building Fortunes, we know how much your business means to you and the people important to you. So spread the word, tell a friend, join our newsletter, and go make a difference in your world. Now on to our show with your host, Peter Mingils.
Hello, everyone. Peter Mingils here. You're listening to us on Building Fortunes Radio. For those people that aren't familiar with my voice, my name is Peter Mingils, and you can catch us on buildingfortunesradio.com. And if you want to catch us live when we're doing one of our live shows, you catch us on buildingfortunesradio.com/live. So anywhere you're connected to the Internet, you'll be able to hear that. And if you go back to these radio shows, you'll be able to hear them all over again and share them with your friends. On Wednesday mornings at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, I get a chance to share a microphone with a really special gal. Her name is Sharon Gregresh. And I have to spell her last name for you. I might say it differently every time I say it, but it's more or less like this. It's Gregresh. And I said, boy, that's easy for me to remember, because whenever I try to remember people's names, how am I going to remember this? So to help you when you're looking for this on Building Fortunes Radio, you do GRE twice. So it's GRE, right? That's easy. And then just throw an SH. So the reason why I mention that is because Sharon is a person who is super duper busy and gets things done, very well accomplished. I say that sincerely. She does lots of stuff relative to the real estate industry. And when we started speaking about doing an everything real estate radio show. And I said, that is great, because I think our Building Fortunes Radio listening audience would love to hear this. They either buy homes or sell homes at some times during their life. Many times homes or vacations or stuff like that are on their dream list, and she's going to be able to bring over a whole topic of information, and today will be another exciting topic. But I just love having Sharon here. She's really well accomplished, very well educated, super smart, nice, and always super busy. We always playfully say, like in the middle of the day, like, what do you think she's going to be doing? She's always doing something. So we've had her in parking lots. We've had her in, open houses. We've had her wherever she is when we do these radio shows. And I just really enjoy her enthusiasm and energy, and knowledge naturally. So, Sharon, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Peter. I think I do the radio show just to, hear you compliment me at the front of it.
There you go.
Thank you for all of that. There you go.
If you want things done, just go to Sharon. If you want it done, just go to Sharon.
There you go. Thank you. Okay, this morning I've got a very interesting guest on. His name is Ryan Rocheleau, and he owns and runs North Central Process Servers in Alberta. He's based out of the Edmonton area, and I came across Ryan a number of years ago because I myself, as a real estate professional, own a number of revenue properties. I believe that I need to put my money where my mouth is and own revenue properties if I'm selling them to other clients, so that I can teach them the ins and outs of what's going on. And Ryan is a guy that's in my database to help me out with tenants. Now, I've had problems anywhere from tenants not paying the rent to tenants trashing my place to finding out that a tenant's a con artist and we couldn't get him out of my place without Ryan's assistance. So, Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sharon.
So I thought, Ryan, maybe we'd start by you giving people, and Peter, I know on the other side of the commercial break, you're going to have tons of questions for Ryan, whether it's like, crazy things that he's come across. And our laws in Alberta may not be the same as they are in other states or other provinces as far as our Landlords and Tenants Act, but you'll get the gist of some of the crazy things that happens with tenants, and maybe know that you can go look for a guy like Ryan in your state or your province. But So, Ryan, maybe right off the top, you can give people an idea of the process that they would go through if a tenant is not paying their rent.
Okay. Well, I guess the most crucial thing is to start with the contract. When you're doing up a tenancy agreement, you must ensure that it's actually enforceable. So if things do go south, you're able to actually enforce the contract and the terms within the contract.
Okay, so that's good. So giving people advice that they don't draft their tenancy agreement on a napkin, or they don't just say to their buddy that they could move into a unit and, you know, you're going to pay me $2,000 a month and it's due on the 1st,
Exactly.
you know, and it's all verbal, right?
Yeah.
So where would you recommend they get? Yeah, you have, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So where would you recommend they get their contracts?
Well, here in Alberta, we do kind of have a template, which is used by most of the landlords to draft up just a basic tenancy agreement. However, it's pretty basic. There's not a lot of details in there, so you do need to add in specific clauses for things that could be a concern. So, for example, drug use is an issue. We find, especially with the legalization of cannabis, people are going to have a view that they can just do this wherever, whenever they feel that they have the opportunity. That could potentially cause some issues for property values if you've got neighboring units or just neighbors in your community who may be a little bit adverse to that type of thing. So that's something that you definitely have to add in. Specifically, it's not generally in the basic tenancy agreements.
Right. So then you would suggest that people write a clause in that says something like absolutely no smoking or ingesting of any legal or illegal substances?
Exactly. And go into a little bit more detail too, like with cannabis, it's going to become a bit of an issue. I can foresee that happening, as well as parties, just heavy foot traffic. Be specific with those types of issues. For example, no heavy foot traffic in and out between the hours of 10 p.m. to 8 a.m., for example.
Okay.
So, that allows you to actually kind of drill down and be specific with a specific issue that is, common to rental properties out there. It's actually very common. Parties, drugs are probably two of the most common things that I'm seeing out there right now.
Okay, so parties and drugs, and then, of course, non-payment of rent. So here in
Alberta,
crucial. And what about damage to property?
Well, here in Alberta, we do require that you do a walk or a move-in inspection just to indicate the condition of the premises on move-in, as well as a move-out inspection. This is something that I see that a lot of my clients don't actually do. So it's pretty tough to determine. It's very common. They just don't do the paperwork. It's pretty tough within a hearing to prove that there's actual damage in relation to the tenancy, unless you have a baseline of what the condition of the property was before the tenants actually moved in. It's next to impossible, basically. So definitely do the move-in and move-out inspections, and do them properly. Videotape everything, document everything. Documentation is the key. Just document everything, from the start to the end of the tenancy.
And if somebody didn't do that in the beginning of a tenancy, would you recommend that they go in now in the middle of a tenancy and at least take it from this spot forward?
Yeah, that's definitely something that's doable. Of course, you do have to understand that the tenant does have rights, and you do have to provide them with notice of an inspection. Here in Alberta, it's a 24-hour notice, and it has to be within a specific time frame. So it can't be late in the evening or very early in the morning. So just provide them notice that you're coming in to do an inspection of the property, and go ahead and walk through that with them. I mean,
Okay.
With the move-in, it's supposed to be on move-in, but that doesn't mean that you can't go in and document the current condition of the property if you do have concerns later on.
Perfect. Okay. And here in Alberta, everything used to have to go through the Alberta court system, and then there were backlogs with tenants' problems. So they, I can't remember how many years ago it was, maybe 10 years. You could let us know. But we now have the RTSD, right? And maybe explain what that is.
Well, it's the Residential Tenancy Dispute Resolution System. Basically, it's a tribunal that has the same powers as the provincial court, so decisions made there have the same force and effect as if made through Provincial Court of Alberta, civil. So it's just kind of to take a little bit of the caseload off of the provincial court system. So what you can do, basically, and this is primarily where I do most of my work, is you can enter a claim with RTDRS and bring the tenant into an actual hearing regarding any of the issues, whether it's non-payment of rent or damages or just breaches of the contract in general.
Okay. So now for me, as a busy person, like Peter always says that I'm busy, and lots of people are busy, but it doesn't have to be about busy. Like, I understand the landlords and tenants laws, but I don't necessarily deal in their nuances every day like you do. And so then there's people out there that don't understand those laws, don't even know that an act exists, and then they try and go and defend themselves. Like you said, they don't do up proper contracts and that type of thing. And I'm going to do a shout out right here to the Edmonton Apartment Owners Association. It's a group, it's a nonprofit association, and they will provide, you can go and purchase contracts and all of the paperwork from them, and they have a beautiful lease agreement that I use, and you've defended me on that lease agreement, right, Ryan? Like, that lease agreement is wonderful.
It is. But you do have to bear in mind that there's two parties within the hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes,
the tenant brings in their evidence and their defense as well too. So, everything has got to be documented. If you can't defend it in the hearing, things could go the way for the tenant. So, that's something that you always need to be cognizant of.
Yes,
so, just because you've got it on paper, it has to be enforceable, and everything has to be documented. Or you could find yourself in just a situation that you don't want to be caught up in with not
absolutely.
able to. And, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say absolutely keep your record straight and make sure that if you're going in on your own, you're documented. But if we're hiring somebody like you, we've got to give you the paperwork to defend us. Exactly.
There's nothing that, I really don't like being caught with my pants down, so to speak, and there's nothing worse than going into a hearing with evidence from the landlord, and then you've got a defendant or a tenant that comes in with very well documented evidence that, what in fact you're going in for can't be substantiated. So, that's happened to me numerous times where, withholding information for me is not going to get you a win in a hearing. You've got to be forthcoming with everything, provide all the information that you have, and, everything comes out in the hearing. So,
right. So now if we have some non-payment of rent issues, in Alberta here, non-payment of rent, I give the tenant a 14-day notice to evict, basically. So if they pay me within the 14 days or I accept any money, let's say they owed me $5,000 and I accepted $100, then we need to start that cycle over. Am I correct?
Well, the eviction notices really aren't enforceable, the 14-day, and they're kind of more really as a courtesy to the tenant to let them know that there's been a breach and that you're seeking to evict them. But I find that in practice, in theory, that's fine. You're giving them notice of 14-day termination. But in practice, if you've got an issue with non-payment of rent and, you're getting into the first or second week of the month and nothing's come in, I would suggest actually going ahead with the claim. It's a $75 fee for filing the claim, and what that does is that actually is enforceable. The tenant is required to actually show up in the hearing, explain their side of the story, and if it's an issue with rent not being paid on time and it's a chronic issue, what they'll do is they'll actually order a payment plan, and this payment plan is enforceable. So if they default on that plan, you as the landlord can effectively evict them within 48 hours. So you don't want to get into a situation, and I've seen this before, where people issue these 14-day eviction notices one after another, and you're getting into 2 or 3 months of non-payment of rent. You know, you've gone through all that work doing these eviction notices, but you're still going to have to file a claim. And
geez, who have you seen that with? Maybe yours truly, where I was trying to be nice and it ended up being $7,000 owing?
Yeah, I mean, that's very common. I mean, people understand that tenants, just like a landlord, can, you know, maybe run a bit short of money. It could happen to anybody. It's not
right.
uncommon. So, I mean, the trick there is to, you know, give them a little bit of leeway. I'd say maybe a week or two to get their ducks in a row and get some rent in. But anything longer than that, I don't think is really, you know, it's just going to land up hurting you, because you have to take into account that eventually you're going to have to file a claim. By the time that you file to the time that the hearing, the hearing is set, it could be upwards of 1 month, and if it's really busy, up 2 months. So if you've got a non-paying tenant who hasn't paid rent for 3 months, and then you've got to wait two months for the hearing, you're looking at 5 months of lost revenue there. And, you know, things worked out very well in your situation, but a lot of times, even when you try to enforce an order, you just can't get your money back. So you kind of have to act quickly. And I would suggest, in practice, not really going with the eviction notices. I mean,
and just go straight to the order.
Go straight to filing a claim. Yeah, it's just really it simplifies things basically.
Okay, that's good advice. Okay, Ryan, we're going to have to take a commercial break here. Maybe when we come back, we'll tell a crazy story or two that we can get away with telling, whether they're mine or some other crazy thing you've gone into. And I know Peter's going to have all kinds of questions around this.
Here we go.
Thanks for listening to Building Fortunes Radio. If you sell a product or service, then you should check out PM Marketing's NetworkLeads.com. Just visit www.networkleads.com. For over 18 years, PM Marketing has helped distributors build their home-based businesses through lead generation, website development, automated email delivery systems, and sales training. If you're looking for a way to increase your skills and increase the number of people that see your product or opportunity, NetworkLeads.com can help. To learn more, visit www.networkleads.com. Ask about their lead management system, capture pages, personalized website, MLM training, humongous blogs, the humongous classified ad network, Building Fortunes Radio, or their webinar schedule. NetworkLeads.com can be your one-stop shop for everything you need. And now, back to our show.
Hello, everyone. Peter Mingils here. You're listening to us on the Everything Real Estate Radio Show. We focus on Canada, but a lot of these questions and these answers have obviously relevance over here in the United States as well. And I find this topic very fascinating from both sides, from the tenants' rights perspective and also from the landlord side. And I guess my initial comment, as Sharon continues, would be is, hey, listen, if you're planning on being a landlord or property owner, and you're not willing to deal with these things eventually, maybe you should reconsider those options, because I think inevitably, and I don't know what the percentages are, but there's a pretty good likely percentage that you'll be dealing with this at some time during your landlord or owner's career. Is that more or less true?
I would say, yeah, it's definitely true, and I do advise people that, Peter. Now, in my situation where my husband and I over the years have owned or partially owned up to a dozen revenue properties at any point in time, I've gone years and years with wonderful, great tenants where we just have to deal with regular maintenance, and maybe there's the odd time that they need to be late in the month and they let you know and that kind of stuff, and you're good. And then times will get tough in the economy, and you'll end up with just lots of bad situations happening. Or you don't know if you're entering into a situation because you ended up renting to a con man, or there are drug rings or gangs out there that Ryan could probably attest to that will send one person in to do all of the renting from you and the lease and the move-in, and then you find out a month or two later that they never moved into your property and they're using it as a grow-up. Would that right, Ryan?
Yeah, I haven't really seen too many grow-ops over the years, but it
Recently,
does happen.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to keep an eye on the utilities. Definitely one of the biggest markers is high utility usage. That's like exponentially more than what you'd be expecting, like 5-10 times more than what the normal family would use. That's kind of a good indicator. The police use that oftentimes to, give them a little bit of probable grounds to maybe go in and investigate a property. So, keep an eye on the utilities. If some weird is up with the usage, then, it could definitely be a grow-up. But,
for those of us that are not familiar with the drug, for those of us that are not familiar with the drug trade, these aren't people that are trying to grow cabbage in their home.
Well, it could be. I actually had one guy with a garden in a bedroom.
Some organic farmer, and I don't think it's somebody trying to grow parsley.
So I mean, with the laws coming in, there's going to be a certain amount that the person can grow on their own, but it's going to be a very minimal amount. So, I mean, when you've got a large-scale operation, that's still going to be illegal. It's just not going to be allowed. So, I mean, even moving forward, there's all this talk of changes in the laws, and cannabis use being legal, kind of along the same lines as alcohol, basically. But that's still going to be definitely a concern.
For
can
sure.
I ask
and
a question about
concern for people? Go ahead.
Yeah, can I ask a question about that relative to Canada? I know in certain states we have, medicinal marijuana, and then in certain states like Colorado, I think it's like a free-for-all. Anybody could do it. What is it like in Canada? Are there states where it's just for medicinal purposes, or are there states where it's legal to use the natural, drug or natural plant?
I mean, right now it's basically, as far as I know, across Canada, you can use it for medicinal purposes. You have to get it through a doctor, but they're changing the laws here where you can have a certain small amount on your person. If it's over a certain amount, it's going to be considered trafficking, and the same is going to go for how much you can grow of your own at your own property, and it's going to be very minimal. So, if anybody's got the idea out there, they're going to convert their, landlord's property to
their garage,
a large-scale grow-up. That's just not going to happen, and it's not going to be, not going to be something that the police are going to turn a blind eye to. But like you mentioned earlier, there's quite a few pitfalls there with becoming a landlord, and I do kind of want to go over some of the things that I've seen with some people just kind of getting into this business as a landlord without maybe checking before they get into. As you'd mentioned, with the economy, just not timing the market right, and then over leveraging with a bunch of different properties in kind of a down market with a high vacancy rate. I've seen people who are just, they're really struggling. They're struggling, and then once they start having tenants that are not paying, it just exacerbates the situation. And it's basically running a business just like anything else. Like, you have to ensure a certain amount of liquidity to cover your costs in a kind of in a down market. We have to kind of build
You're
that in.
You're absolutely right, Ryan. With that, and that's something that I counsel all my real estate clients on. And I didn't necessarily, I wanted to do this segment and show with you so that we can point out to people and help them have a resource to go to when they have some issues. The positive side of owning revenue properties, as you said, from a business standpoint, if you're maintaining and running them properly, just some really quick numbers, let's say somebody bought a revenue property up here for $350,000 and financed it over 25 years and So they do their financing over 25 years with $350,000 mortgage, and 5 years down the road, off of their mortgage, if they're making weekly payments, and this is a whole segment for Tara here, Peter, but their tenant would do buy down for them on that first 5 years to about $290,000. So if they manage the property properly and the tenant's property, then that buy down of 60,000 Canadian dollars, you're not making that on any investments that you're going to make someplace else in the stock market or your GICs or anything else today. So your information and services to people are really key in my book to help them manage their business of revenue properties.
Yeah. Like I've seen that, like, you know, I just have clients coming in just panicking. So, like, you got to prepare for interest rate hikes, increases in property taxes, etc. And I mean, you do have to you are operating a business, so, you know, the tenant is essentially your customer with very enforceable consumer protections. Trust me. A lot of these tenants are very astute, and they'll go after you for any breach of the contract. The contract's a two-way street. So, like, you have to be on the up and up, and you have to be a very good business owner and just very sharp, especially when dealing with a lot of these tenants. I mean, one of the worst things, which I call the nuclear option for a tenant, is, let's say you do get an order against a tenant. What they can do is they can go for a stay of proceedings at a higher court, and then within 1 or 2 days you have to appear in court as the landlord, or you have to get a lawyer. Myself as an agent, because I'm not a lawyer, I'm not allowed to go into a higher court and represent a client. So, I mean, you have to prepare yourself for that type of thing too. I mean, what that typically does is it'll just buy the tenant a bit of time. You know, they're not going to really overturn the order, but what they'll do is typically give a tenant a bit more time there. So, like, you know, I've seen tenants just run roughshod over the landlords, you know, just because they're not documenting it. Like I stated earlier, the most important thing is start with the contract. It has to be enforceable. You have to be able to enforce that. You have to get correct names for people. I've seen tenancy agreements with first names of people, no last names. I mean, it's just it's just a recipe for disaster. You need to get the dates of birth of people as well too, because if you want to enforce things and you want to, let's say a tenant takes off, you don't know where they are, you have to serve the order in order to enforce it. So, myself, I'm a licensed private investigator as well too. So when I search for people, a lot of the searches I do, I need a date of birth in order to filter through the information. So, I mean, it really starts with the contract. It's got to be a real watertight contract, and, you know, chances are you're not going to have to enforce it, but if you do, you know it's there, and you're going to be able to do something with it.
Do you advise people on the writing of contracts, Ryan, up front?
I mean, not really. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't really give legal advice. I can give procedural stuff like, this is what I've seen. You know, maybe include this in there because I've seen clients have, you know, issues in the past. But, you know, if you do need help, always go to your lawyer as well too. Is maybe take a look over the contract and, you know, take some of the tips that I've provided and incorporate that into the contract. I mean, there are real estate lawyers out there who can help you with that. Like you stated, there's the templates out there, and people generally use those. But, you know, when you've got an issue with, you know, for example, drug use or heavy foot traffic with a party, with partiers, I mean, that's not always in there in black and white, like as detailed as it should be. It kind of gives the tenant some leeway, and trust me, a lot of them will look for loopholes. I mean, I've acted as an agent for tenants too, with landlords who were very predatory and, you know, really exploitative of the tenants. So I've seen it from both sides of the perspective, and, you know.
Perfect. So I have one last quick question for you because we only have 2 or 3 minutes left in the show, and I don't. this is coming up quite a bit for me frequently on real estate listings, but tenants have been there for a while. The landlords end up just needing to sell the property because they have no other way of getting a hoarder tenant out. And I mean a hoarder like you see on hoarder television shows.
Yep.
Do you think they have a different way than just selling the property?
Well, no. I mean, if that's built into the contract that it has to be clean and cleanly and kept in an orderly condition, you can enforce the contract based on that. So go in, make provide notice to the tenant that you're going in to do an inspection, document everything, and just make a claim. It's just basically it's a breach of the contract, is what it is.
And if it's not built in, then
contract.
Forget it. Yeah. Okay.
Well,
I'm sure that we could go on with Ryan, have him on another couple shows for him to go through more information.
Oh, yeah.
But we're out of time, right, Peter?
Yep. So we're going to catch you next week.
Also,
yep, Ryan. We're going to make sure.
Do I have enough time?
Yes, please take it.
Okay. Another thing, when you're getting payment up front, use post-dated checks. Seems antiquated. We've got electronic funds transfers, everything these days. The reason why you need that is because once you deposit that check, their institution, their home branch will stamp it with the actual location. That's another thing that an investigator will need if we're tracking down somebody's assets, if you want to enforce an order later on. Start off with post-dated checks. You can maybe later on move to funds transfers, but always get a post-dated check and deposit one. That'll tell you where they're banking.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be able to have Ryan back. For those people that are going to be looking for this radio show, make sure you go to buildingfortunesradio.com/everyday real estate, or everything real estate. And then Ryan's last name is spelled Rocheleau. So there's a little bit of a Frenchness to that. So it's Rocheleau. And when you go there, you'll be able to hear this radio show all over again, and hopefully we'll be able to have Ryan back. I'm sure we can have tons of very interesting stories that are really important for those people that are either being tenants, because you have rights, or being landlords, because you have rights as well. So Sharon Gregresh is here on the radio show. We do this every Wednesday at noon Eastern Time. We put it back up on buildingfortunesradio.com/everything real estate. So on that note, thanks for being here. Ryan, thanks for great information. Sharon, thanks as usual. We'll let everybody go back to work, and we're going to catch you next time on Building Fortunes Radio. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
You've been listening to Building Fortunes Radio on buildingfortunesradio.com. Thanks for listening. Be sure to check us out every Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for the designated Building Fortunes Radio segment with Peter Mingils. Be sure to check out the buildingfortunesradio.com website for our featured segments. It's been our privilege to have you listen in. At Building Fortunes Radio, we wish you the success you deserve and are willing to work for. So spread the word, tell a friend, join our newsletter, and go make a difference in your world.